Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics Less Known Classics, episode number 1479 and episode number 1373. Now, I did say my next one with the Doctor, don't worry, that's probably going to come. Though I don't think it'll come tonight. It's probably not because I have to go to work tomorrow. Now, I got two Marvel trades. The second one, I actually kind of viewed this a few years ago, but I didn't realize I did. But I'll get some new thoughts on the book. It's quite weird of a book, that one is. This one is still weird. The first one is still weird. But here's the thing about this book. This is the pendulum trade of this run. This is the Immortal Hulk, Volume 9. The weakest there is. Yes, let's collect issues 41 to 45 of Immortal Hulk. The very first issue of this book is another match and their brawl between the Hulk and the Thing. By the way, he is very weak in this storyline. Yes, he has become a very weak person. Yes. Now, if you wonder what the Hulk looks like in this thing, like, first time you see Hulk, he's getting the crap beat out of him by the frickin' Thing. Yeah, he is skinny. Well, that's the result of what happened in the last story arc. Also, his base, Shadow Base, has officially been shut down. Here's something quite weird about this run that I kind of noticed recently. That there's not many appearances of Bruce Banner. Yeah, Bruce Banner very rarely appears in this book. Yeah, in the 45 issues, basically, of the previous, overall, the 9 trades, Bruce Banner's appearances have been very scarce at best. Also, Shadow Base has officially been shut down. And, like, we also have the Gamma Flight basically become active. Now, one of his members, the Absorbman, by the way, he appears in the next trade. I'll discuss that soon. Now, he apparently, like, you see, the Alpha Flight program is now under the command of Henry Peter Gyrich. The original commander of the Alpha Flight program was Captain Marvel. But in her own solo book, she stepped down, handed off to Abigail Brand, and Abigail Brand was in charge of this particular organization for about 2 years. And then she stepped down after the events of Empire. Now Henry Peter Gyrich is in charge. Oh, here's something quite interesting, though. The only time you'll see Alpha Flight nowadays, because here's the thing. They did sporadically appear throughout the past several years. I'd say for the past 6 years, they've had good amount of appearances, mostly in the pages of Captain Marvel. They play roles in Secret Empire. They've been around. But here's the thing. Since Kelly Thompson took over as the writer for Captain Marvel, they have really reduced, and I mean really reduced, the amount of appearances of the Alpha Flight program. Now appears in this book, well, mostly the Gamma Flight group, which is led by Puck. And its other members are Doc Samson, who's now known as Doc Sasquatch, Titania, the Absorbman, and later on they have Rick Jones, the group, which they recently got their own miniseries recently. Which I'm thinking, really? They got a miniseries? Even though that the run is ending soon? Yeah, the run is ending really soon. Like, I think it's got about 3 issues left. So after the Hulk's fight with the Thing, then of course, basically, Henry Peter Gyrich tries to have Alpha Flight to go look for the Hulk again. And, of course, well, he threatens Titania that because Zorman is technically not at the station, he has ordered and a warrant out put out for his arrest. I'm like, really, Gyrich? Really? Now, one thing I did notice, though, the way Joe Bennett draws on the covers, and the covers themselves are done by Alex Ross. Now, there is a cover, I believe it's either 44 or 45, that features Gyrich, and, like, here's something interesting, though, about the cover. The way Alex Ross draws Henry Peter Gyrich, he kind of reminds me of, what's the name of the actor? Like, he appeared in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because he's also been on the show Doctor. Let's see if I can find him here. Come on. Let's see. Let's see. His name is... Oh, not that one. Let's see. Let's see here. I'm trying to find here. Here we go. Yeah, he looks like Matt Fowler. Yes. I mean, I'm only familiar with him because of How I Shrunk the Kids. Yeah, he was actually in the original movie, playing Russ Thompson Sr. He also guest starred in the episode of Star Trek Next Generation. I mean, look at the way Alex Ross draws him. He looks exactly like him. Yeah, I'm not really sure why in the world that he's drawn like Matt Fowler. Yeah, like, if you can picture it, yeah, that looks like Matt Fowler reading an old issue of, well, I should point out, though, that he decides, because Gamma Flight basically is, well, too busy to go after him, so he summons a group of old foes of the Hulk, the UFOs. Yes, who had not appeared in the Hulk book in years. Like, let's see, when was the last time, like, prior to this book, that the UFOs actually appeared in the pages of a Hulk comic? Like, not for a long time. Yeah, the UFOs are a creation of Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema. They've been around for surprisingly, get this, for 41 years. This group has been around for. Yes, prior to this issue, prior to the problem in this book, the last time they appeared in a Hulk book and actually fought the Hulk, let's see, that was way back in, I'm trying to find the actual page here. Let's see, I'm looking for it. Here it is. The last time they physically appeared in a Hulk book was way back in Incredible Hulk number 401. That was released back in the 90s. This was released back in 1993. Well, actually, it was released in, let's see. I think it was like 92, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was like 92. Because generally comics never release like, I think it was like 2 months ahead of basically the actual release date. So it was basically not seen since 1992. Yeah, well, that was the last official time that they actually fought the Hulk. So they haven't fought the Hulk in a long time. Interesting that Al Ewing brings him in toward the end of his run. Yep. And this book is just, overall, just really good. At the end of it, we see Harpy briefly. Harpy is definitely Betty Ross in sort of a red Hulkish form. And then, of course, Hulk in the afterlife decides to get back to his normal form before the end of his run. This book is fantastic. This book, roughly a 9.5 out of 10. Really good. Now, originally, I have viewed this book a few years ago. I kind of forgot. Way back in episode 507. So, yeah, it's been a few hundred episodes since I've actually read this last. This is Marvel Knights Spider-Man Volume 4, Wild Blue Yonder, collecting issues 13 to 18. Yeah, this is by far, like, for Spider-Man's story arc, probably one of the weirdest stories that have come out since I've been reading comics. As a matter of fact, this story was coming out when I basically started reading comics. Yeah, it's released back, I believe it was like 2004, I think it was. Well, the trade was released in 2005, but yeah, I think it was like 2004. Yeah, this book collects issues 13 to 18 of the Marvel Knights Spider-Man series. Now, yes, on the cover, yes, this does happen. Wolverine hits on Mary Jane Watson. Now, the book itself is not written. Now, originally the book was written by Mark Millar. He did the first 12 issues of the book, and then he left. There were 2 other writers that came after him. This was the first writer, Reginald Holland. When comic fans think of this particular guy, what's the one book people think of by him? Black Panther. Yeah, he wrote pretty much almost the entirety of Black Panther Volume 4, and he also wrote Black Panther Volume 5, and I think that was it. Yeah, because I don't think he wrote anything else. Let's see. Yeah, because this is also by far his own, as far as I can tell, I think this was his only Spider book he ever wrote. Yeah, he was writing this at the same time he was doing Black Panther. Because after he finished up his long run Black Panther, like, you want to know what he did? He did the first story arc for Black Panther Volume 5, Black Panther Flag of Stars, which I have reviewed that, and the first story arc for Black Panther Volume 5, and the last known Black Panther annual that was released. Yep, that came out 3 years ago. And that's literally all he has done. Yes. The last major comic before that, before 3 years ago, was back in 2010. So, and this came out in 2000, well, I think it was 2004, I think it was. Yeah. Though he was writing some issues of Marvel Knights Spider-Man this period of time, during the story that came after this one. Yeah. So, yeah, it was 2005, so I was still kind of in the way starting to read the comics. Now, what's the story for this thing, aside from Peter Parker coming home to the Avengers Tower? And you're probably thinking, wait, why? When in the world did he start moving the Avengers Tower? Well, that's thanks to a story I'm going to review in a couple episodes after this one. Yes, so he comes home, and what does he find? Wolverine hitting on his wife. Yes, seriously. That's what happens. And then we have a training session between the Avengers, and Wolverine ends up stabbing Spider-Man. Oh, he does get chewed out for this. Wolverine does. Spider-Man does not get any retribution against Wolverine I can think of. And meanwhile, though, we have another subplot. We have the Absorbing Man being released from prison. Yes, the Absorbing Man appearing in a Spider-Man comic. And you're probably thinking, really? The Absorbing Man. A character who is not a Spider-Man villain. He's a villain for Thor and the Incredible Hulk. Oh yeah, he also fought She-Hulk as well. But Spider-Man, this sounds so strange. Though he's broken out and hired by, of all people, the Owl, who's a daredevil villain who at this point in time was the Kingpin of Crime. Because the Wilson Fist was not the Kingpin of Crime anymore. But I think he had fled to like South America, I think it was. Yeah. So he's here and he gets Absorbing hooked on drugs. Also, his beautiful assistant is hitting on him. Apparently, Reginald Holland knew nothing about the fact that the Absorbing Man is married. Yes, he is seriously married. Yeah, apparently completely forgot about that. We do have a debut of one new character, the Virtue. Yes, who basically went through a few different costume changes. First, basically put on like a makeshift costume with a mask over his mouth, and later he put on like another costume with a V on it. He used costumes like Tillerman, basically he's called the Virtue. The thing about this guy is he starts out, I mean, look at him, he looks like Clark Kent just walked into Spider-Man comics. Nope. And they explore the guy's backstory, and his backstory is a carbon copy of Superman's, where he's a survivor of a dying planet raised by farmers in a far up in Iowa, not freaking Kansas. It's almost like Reginald Holland basically really wanted to do Superman in the pages of Spider-Man. So he created this character who has the same exact backstory as Superman. Except this guy is a Skrull. Yes, and the reason why his planet was dying, because his planet got ate by Galactus. I am not kidding about that. It was probably when Galactus ate the Skrull homeworld back in the 80s. That's my personal guess. The artwork in here, when they had the flashback, it's done in a Jack Kirby-esque style. This I think Jack Kirby didn't work on Superman. Well, not until the 1970s, but he wasn't the creator of Superman. That was Joe Simon and Joe Shuster. They're the ones that created Superman. But why the heck he decided to homage Jack Kirby, the artist of this book? Let's go with the artists. You have Billy Tan and Mark Buckingham. Two really good artists. So he ends up fighting him. We also have a guest star appearance in this book, of all people, The Punisher! Yes, the Punisher appears in here to take out the Absori Man. I'm like, really? Like, I think at this point in time when this book came out, I think that if I remember reading at the time this came out, I think he was doing Punisher Max this point. So this probably was his only. When he appeared in this book, this is probably his only appearance he made for a whole year. Because at the end of Punisher Volume 5, because they retconned it where Punisher Volume 6, which was done by Melissa by Garth Ennis and Greg Hurwitz, takes place in a completely different universe. So this is actually just prior to his appearance in Punisher War Journal Volume number 1. Because it is quite strange, the fact that he actually appears in this book. I mean, of all people, like, it is so strange. Like, really? The Punisher? Yeah, it's by far one of the most weirdest things. Like, it felt completely at random. The fact that we had the Punisher appear in this book. Yes, the appearance was completely random at best. Like, because, like, who was asking for the Punisher to appear in a Reginald Holland book? Yeah, this makes no frickin' sense at all. The fact that he appears in this damn book. Let's see if I can find it here. I'm still looking for it. Like, I believe his like last appearance prior to this book. I believe it was in the final issue of his Punisher volume. Let's see. Well, I believe so, because I know he appeared in the previous. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. I know it's taking a bit, but let's see here. Let's see. It's quite strange how to find this thing because, yeah, Punisher didn't do very much for like quite some time with this book. Yeah, they also have Female Porter appears in here, who apparently knew Peter back in high school, who appears just in a story arc in one issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, something to do with the other. But aside from that, this woman does not appear very much at all. Her name was Lori Lawton. Yeah, she's somebody who Peter knew in high school, who apparently was overweight. And, like, she apparently lost weight after high school, and then she became a journalist. I'm like, okay, fine. And here's okay, he wanted some weird stuff in here with the Absorbent. Okay, aside from the fact hooked on drugs, for some reason, and I have no idea why this is, apparently Al decided to give him some cocaine for some strange reason. He sorts it up, and then he turns into cocaine, and then they seal the room, turn on some fans, and apparently spread his cocaine stuff all over the walls of this room, and then they proceed to take chisels and remove every single bit of this cocaine from the walls of this room. And what does Owl do? Sell it. And people who apparently get the powers of the Absorbent Man. Like a guy who apparently can, after he snorts his cocaine, can touch wood and turn his hand to wood or turn to granite. It is so weird. And eventually, slowly, like when people are basically excising the drug, apparently they're excising through the eyes. I thought that was kind of weird. And then slowly Absorbent basically rebuilds himself. Then he proceeds to, like, right he builds himself. The first thing he does, he goes after Al's beautiful assistant and just smashes her head in with his steeled up fist. And then, of course, with the help of Spider-Man and the Virtue, they basically trap him in sand and then hand off to the police. As in the case of Virtue, well, they basically do some research and that's what they found about the whole Skrull stuff. And of all people to contact, the Fantastic Four. Okay, that makes sense due to their long history with the frickin' Skrulls, because they fought them back in their debut appearance back in Fantastic Four #2. Which also debuted Daily Bugle, by the way. Yes, no wonder why Daily Bugle was common associated with the Skrulls. Surprisingly, Daily Bugle has never had any reporters placed by Skrulls, and yes, they did take part in the Secret Invasion with Secret Invasion Frontline. Or apparently they had it where Ben Urich basically took refuge in the Avengers Tower. Yes. By the way, New Avengers have appeared in the first issue. They appear in the last issue to fight the Virtue, and he flies off at the base. This is, of course, after he was defeated. And he starts going nuts, and he flies up, becomes a healer. But then here's the thing. After the storyline wraps up, he's not seen again for, get this, 7 years. Yeah, he does, by the way, give this book a 9 out of 10. This is just a weird story arc. He does appear again into those 2 annuals for New Avengers and Avengers by Bendis to end his run for the book. Yeah, that's his next appearance, is in that book. And I'm like, really? Yes, really. It is by far one of the most strangest things related to this character. Yeah, you have this character who appears just for this story arc, and he doesn't appear again for a long period of time. Yes. Yeah, and after the Ravager storyline, then he popped up again sometime later during the events of Empire. Yes, Empire. Where he got himself a frickin' Skrull. And then he got free from it. They're in the King in Black stuff. Yeah, they brought back from King in Black. I thought that was kind of weird. Yes. But yeah, it's kind of weird about him. It's like, okay, so he pops up for a couple annuals and a couple one-shots, and I'm like, wow. It's like, what was the purpose of creating this character if you're going to do that little with him? Because, yeah, like his next appearance is not for, like I said, 7 years. Well, actually more like 6 years. Appearing in 2 annuals. And then after these 2 annuals, he doesn't appear again until 9 years later. Yep, 9 years later in Web of Venom, Empire's End. Yes, that is by far his next appearance. 9 years later, and then he appears in King of Black, Hulkling, which came out just last year, and that's it. So yeah, 2 one-shots, 3 one-shots and an annual. 3 one-shots and 2 annuals. That's all the guy has done since this book came out. And you're probably thinking, really? Yes, really. He is by far, like, unless you're a hardcore comic reader, you probably have no idea who the heck the Virtue is. He is by far a really pointless character. I mean, all he is a Superman ripoff. A very obvious Superman ripoff. I'm surprised DC didn't sue him. Sue Marvel over this. Because of how similar the backstories were. At least he's not basically wearing the same costume. He basically is doing the same flight patterns. You know how Superman, when he flies, he basically does this, puts his arms like this and flies? Yeah, the Virtue does the same thing as well. I'm like, really? Really, Billy Tan? You basically just draw him flying like Superman. Yeah, I'm not kidding about that. When he flies, that's what he seriously does. Let's see if I can find the page here. Look how big this guy is. He's freaking huge. He's basically like Clark Kent. Let's see if I can find here the way he flies here. Like, here's how he flies. He even has his arms down like this. This is very similar to how Superman flies. It's very similar. And look, here's the random Punisher appearance. Like, oh, here's the Punisher making a random appearance in this book for like no reason. And here's the art style that is very much reminiscent of Jack Kirby. Yeah, it looks like Jack Kirby style artwork, despite the fact this is not Jack Kirby. Yeah, but not much to say about this or the other trade. So yeah, that's a particular review. Doctor Who probably waits till tomorrow at this point. Yep. But until you see the next video, bye.